Hi everyone, welcome to Karan's Gyan. Today I'll kick off with the Great Indian Hospital series. I'll do a comparison of top three hospitals by market capitalization. They include Apollo, Max, and Fortis. So let's just have a look at all three hospitals. I would take a different approach today. I would not look at the share price. I would not look at the market capitalization. I would not look at price to earning, price to book, all other fundamentals that you usually see whenever you pick up a share. I'll not talk about those. I'll just talk about three simple key metrics, which are really easy to understand and really easy to comprehend given the sector of healthcare. So let's just start with introduction. Again, introduction is very important because we need to understand more about the sector before delving into these stocks. Currently, India only has 1.3 hospital beds per 1,000 people. This is an astonishingly low number, and it is much lower than the bare minimum requirement of 3 beds per 1,000 people. Hence, for us to reach this requirement, we would need a further 24 lakh beds just to reach this requirement. These number of beds would require 200 crore square feet of healthcare space. Again, there is plenty scope of improvement, growth for all the companies in healthcare for us to reach a minimum requirement of 3 beds per 1,000 people. That means this industry would literally have to more than double for us to reach this requirement. We also need to understand that India has an aging population, and by 2050 there would be twice as many old people above the age of 60, and this population would account for nearly 21% of the entire population of the country. Moreover, there's another dynamic into play. There is a very high penetration of insurance, and anybody who's insured would like to have the best possible treatment from the best possible hospital. And this is a win for hospitals because, well, everybody's insured and hospitals can charge as much as they want, which sometimes they do. Uh, so the size of this opportunity has lured the likes of private equity funds like Blackstone and Temasek. Let's have a look at some more numbers. So hospital sector in India is valued at 7.9 lakh crores. It was valued at 7.9 lakh crores in financial year 21. Again, this is 3 years ago. I couldn't get a better number from a reliable source. They expect that this would reach to 18.3 lakh crores by financial year 27. Hence, the growth would account to about 18% CAGR. Uh, Moreover, the hospital industry accounts for 80% of India's healthcare market. Another niche segment that's developing is telemedicine market. So this telemedicine market has the potential to reach $5.4 billion by 2025 and grow at a CGR of 31%. Another segment, diagnostics industry. So currently diagnostic industry is valued at $4 billion. The problem with this industry is the lot of unorganized players in this sector. Currently only 25% of the share is taken by the organized sector, so there's a lot of room for organization, big companies coming up and grabbing more and more share of diagnostics industry. If I talk about this organized sector's share, 15% of it is in lab and 10% of it is in radiology. Again, a lot of room for there. Moreover, I'm not too sure if anybody is aware about Ayushman Bharat. So India has the world's largest health insurance scheme. And again, this ties into the previous video I discussed about possible areas where there would be uh, like budget allocation, which people are excitingly looking forward on the 23rd of July. Um, we have a good portion of welfare for in the form of health insurance. Moreover, India ranks 10th in medical tourism index with about 5 lakh medical tourists. This is a 2023 number, and there were only 1.8 lakh medical tourists in 2020. So there is a lot of room here. There's a lot of fireworks, a lot of sparkles, a lot of enticing opportunities in this sector, and it can play very well for the country if the right player steps up. And we might have a winner in one of these three shares, which we would find out later. So moving on, um, I would talk about three key metrics. These three key metrics for hospitals specifically is average revenue per occupied bed. Second is occupancy rate. Third metric is, well, it's a pretty basic metric that's sort of important in having a good understanding about the industry. It is pre-tax return on capital employed, or ROCE. Okay, next slide. Key metric number one, average revenue per operating bed. As the name suggests, basically for a bed that has been operating, what is the average revenue that the bed generates? So we can see in this graph here, in the financial year 2020, all three companies, Apollo, Max, and Fortis, they start in the same range of 42,000 to 45,000, same range. But only one company has overtaken the other two companies, and that's Max. And it has overtaken both these companies by an astonishing number. If I compare Max to the second highest, which is Fortis, there is a difference of 15,000 rupees. And if I look at it on a percentage terms, it's 25% higher. So again, Max, that has just come up, recently acquired, has had a turnaround. It is performing much, much better than its peers. There is a reason for this. I would discuss this later, but well, we already know who our winner is likely to be. Well, the same story continues in occupancy. We see Max has had a much, much better occupancy than Apollo and Fortis. Again, the answer to this question is the same as the answer to the previous question I asked you, and the answer would still come. You'll have to wait. We can already see the clear winner is Max, but let's just look at the third key metric for the sake of it. So the third key metric, as I discussed, is pre-tax ROCE, return on capital employed. We must note that unlike the previous two metrics where I was just comparing hospitals of each of these three companies, because Apollo has Apollo Pharmacy, Fortis has a diagnostic center as well. Hence, I have just compared hospital in this first two metrics so that we are comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So the third metric where we compare apples to oranges, but equally as important, pre-tax ROCE, we see Fortis doing extremely poorly, still doing poorly, at starting at around 5% range in financial year 2020 and hovering at around 10% range 4 years later. Apollo starts ahead of Max at about 14%, whereas Max was at 11.5%. And Max has taken over Polo at a really good rate, and it currently has a pre-tax ROCE of 32%, which I feel is a really good number. So we have a clear winner, that's Max. So I have not looked at the share price. I have not looked at price to earning ratio. I have not looked at price to book, price to sale, all the jazz that is discussed in any and every uh, company analysis, because I want you to have a look of the company irrespective of the price. Max might be expensive, Max might be cheap, but the importance for us is to understand how well it is performing with respect to its peers, irrespective of its current share price or other comparison metrics. Anyways, talking about the winner, Max. So I have picked up five slides from Max Investor Presentation Report. I would highly, highly recommend anyone to go through investor presentation report of any company they invest in, because it sheds a lot of light onto the ambitions, the current plan, the vision, the board of the company. All these key metrics are also derived from the investor presentations of various companies, so they have not just come out of thin air. Again, these numbers are from investor presentations, and you don't have to go through annual reports, quarterly reports to think about these numbers. Just look at investor presentation reports of any company, and you can get all you need to know about the company. So, coming to the winner, Max Healthcare. So, Max Healthcare has 19 facilities. 74% of those beds are in metros. Well, does that answer the question for you? The question I asked in key metric 1 and 2. Since 74% of its beds are in metros, it is much likely it is much likely to have higher occupancy rates. And of course, people in metro are more willing to spend more money on healthcare than people in rural areas because their affordability is high. They live in a metro. Um, their occupancy is 75%. Again, 23% revenue CAGR. So if I think about it, the model of Max having most of its beds in metro areas is what is driving its success basically. If I look at current hospitals, well, there are 4,000 hospitals in Delhi, NCR, outside NCR. I mean, there are 4,000 hospitals under Max, most of them in Delhi, NCR, few of them outside NCR. If I look at shareholding pattern, Abhay Soi, the mastermind, as I would call him, has 23.7% stake. We have foreign portfolio investors and foreign institutional investors grabbing the other 57.3% stake, and the rest is distributed among DIIs and others. So for retail investors like yourself and myself, we are competing for a 4% stake. That means there would be an inflation in the price of the stock because, well, we are competing for the 4% stake. And if sooner or later one of the promoters, FPIs, FIIs, or domestic institutional investors chooses to offload these shares to the retail market, we might see the price go down. But again, that's speculation for some other day. Talking about the payer mix. So payer mix is basically people who pay for a service. Here the service is healthcare, hospital. So hospital would have its own sort of clients. And what this page is telling us is over the years, Max has reduced its dependency on institutional payers. And what it says is so push for reduction in institutional business in order to cater to demand from preferred channels. Basically, institutional institutional payers, they have a fixed deal with hospitals where they pay only a certain amount of money, and that generally does not yield a lot of money compared to other payers such as international payers or self-pay or corporate payers. Since this bag is reducing, since lesser institutional payers are occupying or utilizing Max Healthcare service, we expect the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, which is EBITDA per bed to go up by 12 to 15%. And as we looked earlier, where we talked about average revenue per bed, we talked about ROCE, these numbers are likely to go up further. That means Max is looking much more beautiful than it already seemed. Um, Talking about the next slide. So, as you remember, I talked about telemedicine market. So, telemedicine market is going to reach 5.4 billion by 2025. Well, that's next year. And again, it's growing at the rate of 31% CAGR. And Max constantly has a good portion of revenue coming from digital revenue. As you can see in the bottom banner, the second bottom banner here, it says digital revenue through online marketing and web-based appointments accounted for 22% of overall revenue in financial year 24. Now, just just try to absorb what this just said. It said 22% of its revenue is coming digitally. It helps Max have an asset light model. Max can make money just through digital revenue. And there's not a lot of expenditure there. You just have to spend money on digital platform. Again, there'll be doctors, nurses, other key healthcare professionals looking after you. But Max doesn't have to open hospitals. Max doesn't have to have beds. Max doesn't have to have waiting rooms, etc., etc. So it's all the money saved for a good portion of revenue. If you look at monthly active users over the past 2 years, between September 2022 to March 24, there has been a 7x growth. Again, this is some food for thought. Some research is required more to understand about Max digital omni-channel footprint. Um, so it looks good. Still, some research is required. I would still ask you to maybe go through more in the investor presentation report. In fact, if you have some time, open up quarterly reports, open up annual reports, and you might know more about this side of Max. So, talking about future growth. So basically, here Max is just saying that it has I mean, it's just adding beds. It's acquiring hospitals and it's turning around Sahara Hospital in Lucknow, Alexis Hospital in Nagpur. Moreover, the ROCE threshold levels of they are looking to achieve ROCE threshold levels of 20 to 25% within 4 to 5 years post acquisition, and it's again leveraging its digital platform, etc., etc. Please have a greater look at this in your own time when you go to the investor presentation from Max. But things are looking good. Last but not the least, let's talk about the hospital beds. So, like I discussed earlier, currently Max has about 4,000 hospital beds. And Max is looking to more than double these hospital beds by 2029. Again, 2029 is really far, but if I look at the pipeline for Max, it's looking quite favorable. Again, it says on the bottom right, it says brownfield and greenfield. So what exactly is brownfield? What exactly is greenfield? Well, apart from the difference in the color brown and green, basically brownfield is where a company acquires a current building. There's a building that just made, it acquires the building, it refurbishes the building, it changes the interior based on the requirement of the company. For example, since it's a hospital, Max would acquire a building, set up a hospital inside. It's a very, very fast way to build something because you already have built up infrastructure. You don't have to expend a lot of resources in planning and development. You just have to expend resources in developing the hospital from inside. So that's a brownfield project for you. Greenfield project is where you create everything from scratch. Basically, green is you buy a field that's green, you create a building over there, the building becomes a hospital, and then it takes you some amount of years to start making the hospital operational, and it's a time intensive process. So if we look at financial year 25, they expect 450 more bed additions. By the next 2 years, they'll have another 1,300 beds. 27, they'll have another 1,400 beds, and by financial year 28, they'll have another 400 beds. Still, they haven't decided on the extra 2,500 beds that they're claiming, but they say from financial year 2029 and onwards, there's a potential for these beds to be developed. Also, if I look at the estimated capital outflow, well, it looks pretty reasonable for me. I did have a look at different comparisons by Apollo as well, because Apollo is also expanding on the number of hospital beds. As you know, Apollo is already the biggest hospital chain already with the biggest number of beds available. But Apollo has a more expensive project compared to Max. And given Max is having an asset light model, is using brownfield projects, where brownfield projects are basically most of them, only there are three greenfield projects, such as Dwarka, Gurgaon, and some land bank somewhere in India where they are planning to build 1950 hospital beds. But at the end of the day, Max seems to be doing a good job, and I would ask you to do some more research in this company and make your own decision. But I would say the winner of all these three stocks would be Max. Again, I'm comparing only the hospital business here. There are niche segments that Fortis has, there are niche segments that Apollo has. They are winners in their own sense, but just by looking at the three metrics that I feel are important metrics, it feels that Max is clearly the winner. So this is all from my end. I hope you guys have a nice day. Cheers.